The poor farmer walked into the dealership and was humiliated by the arrogant owner. What the dealer didn't know was that he had just closed $1 million deal and would return to buy 10 luxury cars. A story of humility and justice that will move you. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching this incredible story of overcoming. The gleaming showroom of Luxe Motors buzzed with activity as salespeople in tailored suits circled like sharks. Eyeing potential customers, Charles Denver, owner of the most prestigious car dealership in Dallas, adjusted his Italian silk tie as he watched a dust-covered pickup truck pull into his immaculate parking lot. "Not again," he muttered, grimacing as a weathered man in mud-stained boots stepped out. The man adjusted his worn cowboy hat before making his way toward the entrance. "Marcus," Charles called to a nearby salesman, "we've got another dreamer. Watch this." Ethan McCoy felt the cool blast of air conditioning as he entered the showroom. He'd driven 3 hours from his cotton farm to find the perfect graduation gift for Amanda. His daughter had just completed medical school, and after losing her mother at a young age, she deserved something special. The showroom fell quiet as his boots left small dirt tracks on the pristine marble floor. Ethan noticed the stares and whispers, but kept his head high. He'd faced worse. Samantha Rivera, the newest salesperson at Luxe Motors, observed from her desk. Unlike her colleagues, she saw something dignified in the farmer's weathered face. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked, approaching with a genuine smile. "I'm looking for a gift for my daughter," Ethan replied, his Texas drawl pronounced but gentle. "She just graduated from medical school." Before Samantha could respond, Charles Denver's voice cut through the air. "Sam, I believe our friend here must be lost." His laugh echoed through the showroom. "The Tractor Supply store is on Highway 20. Several salespeople snickered. Samantha's smile faltered as she glanced apologetically at Ethan. "I'm in the right place," Ethan said calmly. "I'd like to see your latest models." Charles approached, his expensive cologne announcing his presence before he arrived. "Listen, friend," he said, placing unwanted emphasis on the last word. "These cars start at prices higher than what most farms in Texas are worth. Why don't you save us both some time?" Ethan's phone vibrated in his pocket. Amanda was calling. He would answer later. "I understand the prices," Ethan replied. "I'd still like to look." Charles made a dramatic show of looking down at Ethan's mud-caked boots. "Our customers typically arrive in vehicles that weren't manufactured when Reagan was president, and they don't track half the countryside onto my floors." More laughter rippled through the showroom. A flush of embarrassment crept up Ethan's neck, but his expression remained neutral. Samantha stepped forward. "Mr. Denver, I'd be happy to show—" "That won't be necessary, Sam," Charles cut her off. "I believe our friend here would be more comfortable elsewhere." He turned to Ethan with a condescending smile. "Perhaps try the used car lot down the street. They might have something in your bracket." Ethan's blue eyes, normally kind, hardened slightly. His calloused hand gripped his hat a little tighter, knuckles whitening. The phone in his pocket vibrated again. Amanda was persistent. "You know what they say about judging books by their covers," Ethan said quietly. Charles laughed. "This isn't a library. Old man, it's a business, and you're wasting my time." The humiliation was complete when Charles gestured toward the door. "Marcus will show you out." Samantha watched helplessly, her stomach knotting with shame for her employer's behavior. Her own father had been a ranch hand. She recognized the dignity in Ethan's weathered hands. "I'll find my own way," Ethan said, replacing his hat as he turned to leave. He nodded slightly to Samantha, acknowledging her attempt at decency. Outside, Ethan leaned against his truck and finally answered his phone. "Sorry, sweetheart," he said, his voice betraying none of the humiliation he'd just endured. "I was in the middle of something. Dad, the Chinese delegation just left. They signed the contract. $28 million for the organic cotton exports." A small smile played at the corner of Ethan's mouth as he looked back at the gleaming dealership. "That's wonderful news, Amanda." "So, did you find me a car?" she asked excitedly. Ethan watched Charles through the glass storefront, now laughing with a wealthy-looking couple. "Not yet," he replied, "but I will, and it'll be quite a story." As he drove away, Ethan thought about his father's words. "Son, real wealth isn't what you have, but who you are." The cotton fields awaited him, thousands of acres stretching toward the horizon, land that had been in the McCoy family for generations, land that was now worth more than Charles Denver could imagine. Golden light bathed the endless rows of cotton as Ethan's truck rumbled down the dirt road toward the McCoy farmhouse. The land stretched for miles, a white ocean under the Texas sunset. 3 workers waved as he passed, their pickup loaded with equipment heading back to the storage barns. Ethan parked beside the modest 2-story farmhouse his grandfather had built. Despite its simplicity, it stood proudly against the backdrop of one of the largest cotton operations in Texas. He sat for a moment, replaying the humiliation at the dealership, his fingers drumming lightly on the steering wheel. Max, his aging border collie, barked a greeting from the porch. The screen door squeaked open as Amanda stepped out, her mother's smile lighting up her face. "Dad, I've been waiting for hours," she called. Rushing down the steps, at 26, she carried herself with a confidence that made Ethan's heart swell with pride. She wore simple jeans and a Ute medical school sweatshirt, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Sorry, darlin'," he replied, climbing out of the truck. "Got held up in Dallas." Amanda hugged him tightly, then pulled back with a questioning look. "So, what did you find? Please tell me it's not something practical and boring." Ethan's weathered face revealed nothing. "Still looking? How's our Chinese friends?" Before Amanda could answer, a silver Mercedes pulled up behind Ethan's truck. Michael Thompson, Ethan's accountant for 20 years, emerged with a leather portfolio. "Ethan, just the man I wanted to see." Michael's excited grin told Ethan everything he needed to know about the contract. "Let's talk inside," Ethan suggested. "Rosa sent over some of her enchiladas this morning, in the farmhouse kitchen. Spacious but dated with appliances from the 90s. The 3 gathered around a well-worn oak table. The walls displayed faded photographs chronicling generations of McCoys working the land. 28 million, Ethan," Michael said, spreading documents across the table. "The Chinese delegation was impressed with your organic farming methods. They're paying premium prices." Amanda squeezed her father's shoulder. "Dad, this is huge. We should celebrate." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "We will. But first, Michael, I need your advice on something." As Ethan recounted his experience at Luxe Motors, Amanda's expression darkened. Michael listened intently, occasionally shaking his head in disbelief. "That Charles Denver has always been a piece of work," Michael commented. "His reputation precedes him." "Dad, you shouldn't have gone alone. I would have—" "It's all right, sweetheart," Ethan interrupted. "It was educational. From the kitchen window, they could see workers finishing for the day. Joaquin Martinez, Ethan's foreman for 15 years, supervised the closing of the equipment barns. His son Diego, home from college for the weekend, helped secure the tractors. Those folks in the city," Ethan mused, "watching his employees, they think wealth is about showing off. My daddy taught me it's about taking care of your people." Michael closed his portfolio with a decisive snap. "So what are you thinking?" "Ethan," a rare smile played at the corners of Ethan's mouth. "I'm thinking it might be time to show Mr. Denver what real Texas wealth looks like." Amanda leaned forward. "Dad, what are you planning?" "Michael, how much would 10 luxury cars cost?" Michael blinked. 10, around 2 million, depending on the models. "And our liquidity after this contract? More than comfortable. But 10 cars, what for?" Ethan stood up and walked to the window. The setting sun painted the cotton fields gold and crimson. In the distance, workers' families gathered for dinner outside the modest homes he provided on his property. 8 for my longest-serving employees. 1 for Amanda and 1 for me, though I'll still drive my truck most days. Amanda's eyes widened. "Dad, are you serious? Those folks have been with us through droughts, floods, and everything in between. Time they shared in our good fortune," Michael laughed. "And I suppose you'll go back to the same dealership. With a little help from you and our lawyers." Ethan turned from the window, his eyes twinkling. "I think Mr. Denver needs a lesson in judging books by their covers." Later that evening, after Michael left with instructions to prepare the necessary paperwork, Ethan and Amanda sat on the porch swing. Crickets chirped in the gathering darkness, and the sweet scent of cotton hung in the air. "Mom would be proud of you," Amanda said softly, "both for your success and for not punching that dealer in the face." Ethan chuckled. "Your mother had the real class in this family. I'm just a stubborn old farmer." "A stubborn old farmer who's about to make a statement with 10 luxury cars." They laughed together, rocking gently as stars emerged above the vast Texas landscape. The humiliation of the day faded as Ethan considered the surprise that awaited Charles Denver. In the distance, a coyote howled, and Max gave a half-hearted woof in response. Some things in life changed. Fortunes rose and fell, but the land remained constant. Ethan had remained true to it, and now it was rewarding him in ways he'd never imagined. Samantha Rivera's small apartment felt especially cramped that evening. She sat at her kitchenette table, nursing a cup of tea while her younger sister Elena practiced college application essays on their shared laptop. "You're distracted," Elena observed, looking up from the screen. "Bad day." Samantha nodded, her thoughts returning to the weathered farmer and Charles Denver's cruel dismissal. "My boss humiliated someone today, a farmer looking to buy his daughter a car. I just stood there. You need that job for us both," Elena reminded her pragmatically. At 17, she already understood life's harsh economics better than most adults. A notification pinged on Samantha's phone, an email from Charles Denver to all staff. Her stomach tightened as she read, "Staff meeting tomorrow, 8 a.m. sharp, discussing proper customer screening procedures. Some of you need a refresher on which prospects deserve our attention." Across town, Charles Denver lounged in his penthouse apartment, sipping 18-year-old scotch. Victor Mendez, his finance manager and trusted confidant, scrolled through his tablet. "Profits are up 10% from last quarter," Victor reported. "Though the Lexus dealership on Westheimer is cutting into our market share," Charles waved dismissively. "They cater to a different crowd. Speaking of which, I want to implement a new vetting system for walk-ins. That dusty farmer wasted 30 minutes of our time today." Victor nodded obediently, but hesitated before speaking again. "Actually, Charles, you might want to see this." He passed his tablet over. Charles nearly choked on his scotch. The headline read, "Local farmer secures $28 million export deal with Chinese buyers." Below was a photograph of Ethan McCoy shaking hands with Chinese businessmen in front of endless cotton fields. "This can't be the same man," Charles muttered, but the weathered face was unmistakable. "Why would someone with this kind of money dress like that?" Victor shrugged. "Different values. Not everyone needs to show off." Charles's expression darkened. "Find out everything about him. Tax records, property holdings, everything." The following morning at Rosa's Cafe in Millfield, Ethan sat at his usual corner table. The small-town diner buzzed with locals starting their day. Farmers, teachers, shop owners, the backbone of rural Texas. Rosa herself brought over his usual breakfast. 3 eggs over easy, bacon and homemade tortillas, her round face creased with affection for her longtime customer. "Congratulations on that Chinese deal, Ethan. The whole town's talking about it." "News travels fast," Ethan commented, adding hot sauce to his eggs. "Small towns," Rosa smiled, refilling his coffee. "So, when are you finally going to trade in that old truck of yours?" Ethan's eyes twinkled. "Funny you should ask." The bell above the door jingled as Thomas Jenkins, director of the Regional Bank of Texas, entered. He spotted Ethan and headed over. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, already pulling out a chair. Thomas had known Ethan since they were boys, their friendship spanning 5 decades of drought, prosperity, and everything in between. "Free country," Ethan replied with a smile. "That Chinese contract is the talk of the banking world," Thomas said, accepting coffee from Rosa. "You could buy half the county if you wanted. Just looking to get Amanda a nice graduation present." "Speaking of which," Thomas leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Heard you had some trouble at Luxe Motors in Dallas yesterday." Ethan's eyebrows rose. "How'd you hear about that?" "My niece works for the bank that finances their inventory. Said the owner was asking all sorts of questions about you this morning, running credit checks, property searches." Ethan set down his fork. "Is that right?" Thomas nodded. "Apparently he nearly had a heart attack when he found out who you really are." Back at Luxe Motors, Samantha stood uncomfortably as Charles addressed his sales team. His usual arrogance was amplified, his movements more animated than usual. "We need to be more discerning about who we spend time with," Charles lectured. "But," his tone shifted abruptly, "we also need to remember that wealth sometimes comes in unexpected packages." Samantha felt her phone vibrate. A text from Elena. "Check local business news now." Discreetly, she opened the article. Her eyes widened as she recognized Ethan McCoy in the photo. "Samantha," Charles's sharp voice cut through her thoughts. "Since you were so eager to help our farmer friend yesterday, I'm putting you in charge of VIP relations going forward." Confused murmurs spread through the sales team. "In fact," Charles continued, his smile not reaching his eyes, "I want you to personally reach out to Mr. Ethan McCoy and invite him back to our dealership. It seems we may have misjudged him." The staff meeting dispersed with confused chatter. Victor pulled Charles aside. You really think he'll come back after yesterday? Charles straightened his tie. Everyone has a price, Victor. We'll offer him a special discount. Complimentary maintenance. Whatever it takes. And if he refuses, Charles's expression hardened. He won't. Men like that. New money. They all want validation from people like us eventually. Samantha overheard their conversation while gathering her things. The contempt in Charles's voice made her skin crawl. As she headed to her desk, she made a decision. She would contact Mr. McCoy, but not for the reasons Charles wanted. She would apologize for her own failure to stand up for what was right. The atmosphere in Luxe Motors crackled with tension as Charles Denver paced behind the reception desk. For the third time in 10 minutes, he checked his Rolex, then adjusted his already perfect Windsor knot. "Any sign of him?" he asked the receptionist, who shook her head nervously. Samantha stood by her desk, a folder clutched in her hands. After calling Ethan McCoy yesterday to apologize, she'd been surprised by his gracious response, and even more surprised when he mentioned he might return to the dealership today. "Remember," Charles hissed to his assembled staff, "treat him like royalty. I don't care if he shows up in manure-covered overalls." The glass doors slid open, and every head turned, but instead of Ethan, a young woman entered. She wore a simple blue dress and minimal makeup, her confident stride suggesting purpose rather than browsing. "Can I help you, miss?" asked Marcus, one of the senior salesmen. "I'm just looking around," she replied pleasantly, moving toward the luxury SUV section. Charles turned away dismissively. "Focus, people. McCoy could arrive any minute." Outside, Ethan parked his dusty pickup across the street, watching the dealership entrance. Beside him sat Michael Thompson and two men in dark suits, James Barton and Daniel Wright, attorneys who had represented the McCoy farm for years. "Are you sure about this?" "Ethan," Michael asked. "We could find another dealership." Ethan shook his head. "It's not about the cars, Michael. It's about something my daddy taught me. Respect is earned, not bought." Inside, Amanda McCoy, the young woman in the blue dress, circled a white Range Rover, noting the nervous energy permeating the showroom. No one recognized her as Ethan's daughter. They'd never seen photographs of the farmer's family. The glass door slid open again. This time, 4 men entered. Ethan, Michael, and the 2 attorneys, all wearing crisp suits. Only Ethan's weathered face and calloused hands betrayed his profession. Charles practically sprinted across the showroom. "Mr. McCoy, what an unexpected pleasure." "Is it?" Ethan replied evenly, his Texas drawl more pronounced than ever. Charles's smile faltered momentarily. "Of course, we welcome all serious buyers at Luxe Motors, even farmers with mud on their boots." An uncomfortable silence fell over the showroom. Several salespeople suddenly found the floor fascinating. "A regrettable misunderstanding," Charles said smoothly. "Please, allow me to personally show you our finest vehicles." "That won't be necessary," Ethan replied. "I'd prefer Mrs. Rivera assist me today." Charles's smile tightened as he motioned for Samantha to approach. "Of course, our best associate for our most valued customer." Samantha stepped forward, meeting Ethan's eyes with genuine respect. "It's good to see you again, Mr. McCoy. These are my attorneys and my accountant." Ethan introduced the men beside him. "And that young lady by the Range Rover is my daughter, Dr. Amanda McCoy." All heads turned toward Amanda, who waved casually. Charles's expression cycled rapidly through shock, recognition, and calculation. "Doctors and attorneys," Charles exclaimed with forced joviality. "The McCoy family is full of achievers." Ethan nodded. "My daughter just graduated from medical school, top of her class." "Wonderful. Perhaps the Range Rover she's admiring would make an appropriate graduation gift. I could offer a substantial discount." "Actually," Ethan said, his voice carrying through the now silent showroom, "I'm interested in purchasing multiple vehicles today." Charles's eyes widened. Multiple. 10 to be exact. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. Several salespeople gasped audibly. Victor Mendez, who had been hovering nearby, began frantically calculating commissions in his head. 10 vehicles, Charles repeated, unable to hide his astonishment. "Is that a problem?" Ethan asked innocently. "No, no problem at all." Charles was practically salivating. "Please, let's discuss this in my private office. I'd prefer to stay here," Ethan replied, with Mrs. Rivera handling the paperwork. Charles's smile became strained. "Of course, but for a transaction of this magnitude, my attorneys and accountant will handle the details," Ethan interrupted. "I trust Miss Rivera to guide us through your inventory." Amanda joined them. Standing beside her father with the same quiet dignity, Charles looked between them, calculating his next move. Perhaps I could offer the McCoy family a celebratory dinner to discuss your specific needs. That won't be necessary, Ethan replied. We know exactly what we want. Samantha stepped forward with her folder. I've taken the liberty of preparing some options based on our conversation yesterday, Mr. McCoy. As they moved toward Samantha's desk, Charles trailed behind, unwilling to be excluded from the largest sale in the dealership's history. The entire showroom watched in disbelief as Ethan calmly discussed purchasing vehicles worth more than most of them would earn in years. One Porsche 911 for my daughter, Ethan stated. A Range Rover for myself, though I'll still use my truck for farm work. And 8 more vehicles of various models. 8 more. Charles couldn't contain himself. May I ask what you need 8 additional luxury vehicles for, Mr. McCoy? Ethan smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. For the people who helped build my business, folks who've stood by me through thick and thin. In that moment, the contrast between the two men couldn't have been clearer. Charles saw cars as status symbols. Ethan saw them as rewards for loyalty and hard work. We'll pay cash, Michael added, opening his briefcase to reveal documentation of the McCoy farm's liquidity. Charles's eyes gleamed with dollar signs, all thoughts of yesterday's humiliation apparently forgotten in the face of unprecedented profit. What he didn't notice was Victor Mendez's thoughtful expression as he observed Ethan's interaction with his employees, the respect he showed Samantha, the way he genuinely listened when she spoke, the absence of condescension in his manner. It was a revelation to Victor, who had spent years watching Charles treat people as disposable tools for his advancement. Charles Denver's office resembled a shrine to wealth, awards, photographs with celebrities, and a showcase of luxury watches behind glass. He poured himself a generous scotch, not bothering to offer one to Victor, who sat nervously across from him. 10 cars, Charles mused, swirling the amber liquid, the largest sale in our history, and that cowboy wanted the Hispanic girl to handle it. Samantha's doing an excellent job, Victor offered. The paperwork is almost complete. Charles slammed his glass down. That should be my commission, mine, after he made me look like a fool. He didn't actually, and now he's giving cars to his farmhands. Who does that? There's something not right about this, Victor. Victor shifted uncomfortably. He seems legitimate. The bank confirmed his funds. Charles leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. $28 million for cotton in today's market. And suddenly he's throwing money around like this. The contract was with a Chinese conglomerate. It's been verified. Chinese, Charles interrupted, his eyes narrowing. Exactly. What do we really know about these deals? For all we know, he could be laundering money, smuggling drugs through his export channels. That's a serious accusation, Victor warned. Charles waved dismissively. I'm not accusing. I'm speculating. But doesn't it seem strange? A simple farmer suddenly flashing millions? Maybe someone should look into it. Meanwhile, Samantha guided Ethan, Amanda, and their team through the final selections. The showroom hummed with excitement as employees realized they were witnessing history. The Range Rover will be delivered next week, Samantha explained. And the Porsche can be ready tomorrow, Dr. McCoy. Amanda smiled. Please, call me Amanda, and thank you for being kind to my father the other day. It means a lot. I should have done more, Samantha admitted quietly. Sometimes standing witness is all we can do, Ethan said. You were the only one here who saw me as a person, not a walking wallet or a hick to be mocked. Across town, in the small cafe where Samantha had suggested they meet for coffee, Amanda studied the young salesperson with interest. So you're putting yourself through business school? Amanda asked, stirring her latte. Samantha nodded. And helping my sister with her college applications. Our parents came from Mexico 20 years ago. Dad passed away last year. I'm sorry, Amanda said sincerely. I lost my mom when I was 12. Dad raised me alone while running the farm. He must be incredible, Samantha said. Most people who come into the dealership with money like his are different. Dad believes wealth is a responsibility, not a privilege. He still lives in the same house my grandfather built, still works alongside his employees during harvest. Their conversation flowed easily. Two young women from different worlds finding unexpected common ground. When Amanda mentioned her plans to open a rural health clinic, Samantha's eyes lit up. My sister wants to study medicine too. But the costs? Maybe I could help, Amanda offered. We always need volunteers, and it looks good on applications. Back at the dealership, Storm clouds gathered as Ethan finalized arrangements with his attorneys. The first heavy drops of rain pelted the showroom windows when Charles approached, his manner overly friendly. "Mr. McCoy, everything to your satisfaction." "Ms. Rivera has been extremely helpful," Ethan replied. Charles smiled thinly. "Excellent. I was wondering, though, these vehicles for your employees, would you like us to handle the ownership transfers? There can be tax implications." Michael Thompson stepped forward. "We'll handle all legal and tax matters, thank you." Of course, Charles backpedaled. "Just trying to be thorough. With transactions this size, sometimes there are reporting requirements." Ethan's weathered face revealed nothing, but his eyes hardened slightly. "Everything's above board, Mr. Denver. Always has been." As they prepared to leave, Charles shook Ethan's hand with exaggerated enthusiasm. "We look forward to completing this historic transaction." Outside, thunder rumbled as Ethan, Amanda, and their team hurried to their vehicles. The rain came down in sheets now, matching the darkening mood. "He's fishing," Michael warned as they climbed into Ethan's truck, asking about tax implications, reporting requirements. "He's suggesting something." "I noticed," Ethan replied calmly, starting the engine. "Dad, be careful," Amanda cautioned. "Men like that don't take humiliation well." At his desk, Victor watched Charles make a phone call, his voice too low to overhear. Something about the gleam in Charles's eye made Victor deeply uncomfortable. He'd seen that look before, when Charles was about to destroy a competitor or fire an employee who'd challenged him. As the storm intensified, Victor made a decision. He discreetly copied several files onto a flash drive, then slipped it into his pocket. Insurance, he told himself, though against what he wasn't yet sure. The storm that swept across Texas that night was both literal and figurative. Nature's fury outside, and human calculation within. Both would leave destruction in their wake. The morning sun struggled through lingering storm clouds as Ethan reviewed documents in his study. The antique desk, passed down through generations of McCoys, was covered with contracts and banking statements. Michael Thompson sat across from him, his expression grave. "It doesn't make sense," Michael said. "The bank has never questioned your transactions before." Ethan read the email again. "Due to regulatory compliance requirements, all accounts under the name Ethan McCoy or McCoy Agricultural Enterprises have been temporarily frozen pending review." "Thomas didn't call you?" Ethan asked. "That's what's strange. I can't reach him. His secretary says he's in meetings all day." A knock on the door interrupted them. Amanda entered, still in scrubs from her morning hospital rounds. "Dad, what's going on? I just tried to buy supplies for the clinic, and my card was declined." Ethan's weathered face remained calm, though his eyes betrayed concern. "Seems we've hit a snag." "Sweetheart, the bank's frozen our accounts." "What? Why?" "That's what we're trying to figure out." The landline rang, one of the few concessions to modernity in the old farmhouse. Ethan answered, his expression darkening as he listened. "I see, yes. We'll cooperate fully." He hung up and turned to Michael and Amanda. "That was Thomas. The bank received an anonymous tip suggesting our Chinese contract might involve financial irregularities." "That's absurd," Amanda exclaimed. "Thomas knows that, but his hands are tied. They have to investigate." Michael's eyes narrowed. "Anonymous tip, right after your visit to Luxe Motors, that's no coincidence." Ethan nodded slowly. "My thoughts exactly." A heavy silence fell over the room, broken by another knock. Joaquin Martinez, Ethan's foreman, stood in the doorway, hat in hand. "Boss, there's a problem. The supply company won't release our fertilizer order. They say our account is on hold." Ethan sighed. "It's all right, Joaquin. We're working through some banking issues. Tell the men to continue with what we have for now." After Joaquin left, Amanda paced the room. "This is Charles Denver's doing, isn't it?" "Can't prove it," Ethan replied. "But yes, I believe so." "We need to fight back," she insisted. "And we will," Ethan assured her. "But carefully. Men like Denver don't play fair." At Luxe Motors, Charles gloated as Victor delivered the news. "McCoy's accounts are frozen, all of them." Victor nodded uncomfortably. "My contact at the bank confirmed it. The anonymous tip worked." Charles laughed. "Wonderful. Now he can't complete the purchase. 10 cars. Victor. Did he really think I'd let him waltz in here, humiliate me, then walk away with the biggest commission of the year going to that girl? What if the investigation clears him?" Victor asked. "It could backfire. By then the damage will be done. His Chinese buyers will get nervous. Maybe back out. Best case, He'll have to come crawling back here, begging for understanding about his temporary financial difficulties. Samantha approached Charles's office, intending to ask about the McCoy paperwork, but stopped when she overheard their conversation. "You know," Charles continued, "I've been thinking, when this is over, we should reconsider Samantha's position. She's too soft. This business requires a certain ruthlessness." Samantha backed away silently, her mind racing. She needed to warn Ethan, but how? Charles would check her call logs if he suspected anything. By afternoon, news of Ethan McCoy's financial troubles had spread through Millfield. At the local diner, Rosa defended him fiercely to gossiping customers. Ethan McCoy built his business honestly. Anyone suggesting otherwise is either a liar or a fool, but others weren't so loyal. At the hardware store, Ethan felt the stares and whispers as he purchased supplies. Old friends suddenly found reasons to avoid eye contact. "This how it's gonna be, Dave?" Ethan asked the store owner, a man he'd known for 40 years. Dave looked uncomfortable. "You know how people talk, Ethan. I'm not judging, but sounds like judging to me," Ethan replied quietly. Taking his change at the hospital where Amanda worked, the atmosphere was equally strained. In the doctor's lounge, conversation stopped when she entered. "Don't let it bother you," Dr. Rodriguez. Her mentor advised, "People love building pedestals just to watch others fall from them." "My father is the most honest man I know," she replied, fighting tears. "I believe you, but mud sticks, especially in small towns." That evening, the McCoy farmhouse felt unnaturally quiet. Ethan sat on the porch watching the sunset paint his cotton fields gold. The land that had sustained his family for generations now felt like both sanctuary and prison. Amanda joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. The clinic board called. They're reconsidering their support due to recent developments. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Your mother always said the true measure of friendship is what remains when trouble comes. What do we do now? We wait. Truth takes longer than lies to travel, but it gets there eventually." Inside, the phone rang again. Michael answered, then brought it to Ethan. "It's Charles Denver," he said, his expression grim. Ethan took the phone. "McCoy speaking." Charles's voice oozed false concern. "Mr. McCoy, I've just heard about your situation. How terrible. I wanted to personally assure you that once this misunderstanding is cleared up, we'll be happy to renegotiate the terms of our deal." Ethan's free hand clenched into a fist, but his voice remained steady. "Is that right? Of course, perhaps a more modest package, maybe just 2 vehicles instead of 10. Something more aligned with your current circumstances." "My circumstances haven't changed, Mr. Denver." Charles chuckled. Of course. Just know that I'm here to help, after all. We're both businessmen. We understand how complicated things can get." After hanging up, Ethan stared at the darkening horizon. His expression, usually unreadable, now showed a rare flash of anger. "Dad?" Amanda asked cautiously. "He's enjoying this," Ethan said quietly. "He thinks he's won." For the first time in years, Amanda saw something dangerous flash in her father's eyes, the same look he'd had when defending their farm during the drought of '98, when banks tried to foreclose on half the county. "What are you going to do?" she asked. Ethan stood, his tall frame silhouetted against the sunset. "First, I'm going to pray for guidance. Then I'm going to show Charles Denver what happens when you mistake patience for weakness." Rain pelted against Samantha's windshield as she drove toward the McCoy farm, her wipers struggling against the downpour. The rural road stretched dark and empty before her, matching her turbulent thoughts. In the passenger seat lay a folder containing printouts of emails between Charles and Victor, evidence of their scheme to sabotage Ethan. She had accessed Charles's email while he attended a manufacturer's lunch, her hands trembling as she forwarded incriminating messages to her personal account. The farmhouse appeared through the rain, warm lights glowing from its windows. Samantha parked beside several other vehicles, Ethan's truck, Amanda's sedan, and 2 she didn't recognize. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed the folder and dashed through the rain. Amanda answered her knock, surprise registering on her face. "Samantha, what are you doing here?" "I need to speak with your father, it's important." Inside, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with Michael Thompson and Thomas Jenkins, the bank director. All 3 men looked up as Samantha entered, dripping rainwater onto the worn wooden floor. "Ms. Rivera," Ethan acknowledged, standing. "This is unexpected." "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, clutching the folder nervously. "But there's something you need to see." She placed the folder on the table. Charles Denver and Victor Mendez fabricated the anonymous tip to the bank. They're deliberately trying to ruin you because of what happened at the dealership. Thomas Jenkins reached for the folder. May I? As he reviewed the emails, his expression darkened. This would explain a lot. We received the tip from an untraceable email, but the specifics suggested inside knowledge of banking procedures. These emails mentioned contacting the Chinese buyers, Michael noted, reading over Thomas's shoulder. They're trying to sabotage the contract, too. Ethan remained calm, though his eyes reflected the storm outside. Ms. Rivera, you've taken a significant risk bringing this to us. I couldn't be part of it, Samantha replied simply. My father raised me better than that. Charles will know it was you, Amanda warned. I quit this afternoon, Samantha admitted. Left my resignation on his desk. A moment of silence followed, broken by Thomas Jenkins clearing his throat. These emails are compelling, but not conclusive proof for legal purposes. They show intent, but not necessarily action. What about Victor? Michael suggested. He seems uncomfortable with the scheme. Could he be convinced to confirm it? Possibly, Samantha nodded. He has a conscience. Unlike Charles, he's just afraid of losing his job. I might have a solution, Thomas said thoughtfully. If we approach this carefully. Across town, in his luxury apartment, Charles Denver celebrated his apparent victory with expensive champagne. The television murmured financial news in the background as he called Victor. Have you heard anything from McCoy? He asked, lounging on his designer sofa. Not since this morning, Victor replied, his voice tight. Charles, I'm not sure this was... Not getting cold feet, are you? Remember who signs your bonus checks? No, but falsely accusing someone of financial crimes is... We didn't accuse anyone, Charles interrupted smoothly. We merely raised concerns about unusual financial activities. If McCoy's business is legitimate, he has nothing to worry about. After hanging up, Victor stared at his phone, guilt gnawing at him. His daughter's photograph smiled at him from his desk. She was the reason he tolerated working for Charles. The reason he compromised his principles daily, her education, her future, depended on his income, but at what cost to his soul? The next morning, Rosa's cafe buzzed with gossip about the McCoy situation. Rosa herself silenced the chatter whenever it grew too speculative. Shame on you all, she scolded a group of regulars. Ethan McCoy has supported this community for decades. Now a little trouble comes. And you turn on him like vultures. The bell above the door jingled as Thomas Jenkins entered with Victor Mendez, an unlikely pair that drew curious stares. Private room available, Rosa? Thomas asked. For you, Thomas, always. In the small back room normally reserved for community meetings, Thomas faced Victor across a scarred wooden table. Mr. Mendez, I'll be direct. We have evidence suggesting you and Charles Denver fabricated allegations against Ethan McCoy to damage his reputation and business interests. Victor paled. I don't know what you're talking about. Thomas slid copies of the emails across the table. These say otherwise. Victor stared at the printouts, his hands trembling slightly. Where did you get these? That's irrelevant. What matters is that they constitute evidence of slander, defamation, and potentially criminal interference with financial operations. I was following orders, Victor protested weakly. That defense has historically proven ineffective, Thomas replied dryly. However, we're prepared to focus our attention solely on Mr. Denver if you're willing to provide a formal statement confirming his actions. He'd ruin me professionally. Perhaps. Or perhaps you'd be recognized as the whistleblower who exposed fraudulent practices in the luxury car industry. Thomas leaned forward. Additionally, the bank might be interested in creating a position for someone with your financial expertise, one that includes tuition assistance programs for dependents. Victor's eyes widened. How did you know about my daughter? Thomas smiled thinly. Small towns, Mr. Mendez. We know our neighbors. After a long moment, Victor nodded. What do you need me to do? At the McCoy farm, Samantha helped Amanda sort medical supplies for the rural clinic, a project temporarily stalled by the frozen accounts. I still can't believe you quit your job, Amanda said, organizing bandages into bins. Best decision I've ever made, Samantha replied. Though now I need to find another way to pay for business school. What's your dream? Long-term. To run my own business someday. Something that helps people, not just sells them things they can't afford. Amanda smiled. Sounds like you and my father would get along well. He always says business should serve community, not the other way around. Their conversation was interrupted by Ethan entering with Michael Thompson. "Ladies," Ethan greeted them. "We've had a breakthrough," Thomas just called. "Victor Mendez has agreed to provide a sworn statement about Charles's actions." "That's wonderful," Amanda exclaimed. "There's more," Michael added. "The bank is unfreezing our accounts immediately, and Thomas is personally contacting the Chinese delegation to reassure them." Relief washed over the room. Outside, the rain had finally stopped, and sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the cotton fields. "What happens now?" Samantha asked. Ethan's weathered face broke into a rare smile. "Now, Ms. Rivera, we prepare to pay Mr. Denver a visit with receipts." The Luxe Motors showroom gleamed under artificial light as rain continued to fall outside. Charles Denver stood by the window, watching droplets stream down the glass like tears. The showroom was unusually quiet for a weekday afternoon, the weather keeping potential customers away. His phone buzzed with a text from Victor. "Banking meeting running long. We'll be back by 3. Charles frowned. Victor had been acting strange since yesterday. Distracted, avoiding eye contact. Probably family troubles. The man was too soft, too concerned with his daughter's approval. The glass doors slid open, and Charles turned, expecting a rain-soaked customer seeking shelter. Instead, he found himself facing Ethan McCoy, flanked by Amanda, Michael Thompson, Thomas Jenkins, and Samantha Rivera. Charles forced a smile. "Mr. McCoy, what a pleasant surprise. I've been trying to reach you about our arrangement." "I'm sure you have," Ethan replied evenly. Charles noticed their expressions, determined, unworried, and felt the first flicker of unease. "I understand your financial situation is complicated at the moment. Perhaps we should discuss this privately." "I think here is fine," Ethan said, his voice carrying through the showroom. The few salespeople present stopped what they were doing. Sensing drama unfolding, Thomas Jenkins stepped forward. "Mr. Denver, I'm Thomas Jenkins, director of the Regional Bank of Texas. I wanted to personally inform you that all accounts belonging to Mr. McCoy and his enterprises have been unfrozen, with our sincere apologies for any inconvenience." Charles blinked rapidly. "Well, that's excellent news. Misunderstandings happen in business all the time." "This wasn't a misunderstanding," Michael Thompson corrected. "It was a deliberate attempt to damage Mr. McCoy's reputation and business interests." "I don't know what you're implying, but—" "We have evidence, Charles," Samantha interrupted. "Emails between you and Victor detailing your plan, including the anonymous tip to the bank." Charles's face flushed, then paled. "You accessed my private emails. That's illegal." "So is filing false reports to financial institutions," Thomas countered. "A fact the banking commission takes very seriously." The showroom had fallen completely silent. Every employee watched the confrontation, frozen in place. Charles forced a laugh. "This is ridiculous. Where's Victor? He'll explain that this is all a misunderstanding." As if on cue, the doors opened again. Victor entered, accompanied by 2 people in suits, a man and a woman with the unmistakable bearing of law enforcement. "Mr. Denver," the woman said, producing credentials. "I'm Agent Carrillo with the Financial Crimes Division. We'd like to ask you some questions about potentially fraudulent banking reports." Charles's practiced smile collapsed. I need to call my attorney." "That's your right," Agent Carrillo confirmed. "In the meantime, we'll need access to your office and files." As the agents led Charles away, the remaining salespeople gathered in small clusters, whispering urgently. Victor approached Ethan with an expression of deep remorse. "Mr. McCoy, I want to apologize for my role in this. It was wrong, and I have no excuse." Ethan studied the man for a moment before responding. "Fear makes people do things they later regret, Mr. Mendez. The true measure is what you do to make it right." Victor nodded gratefully, then turned to Samantha. "I'm sorry, Sam. I should have stood up to him like you did. It's never too late to do the right thing," she replied. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across the parking lot as Ethan's group exited the dealership. "What happens now?" Amanda asked. "The legal system will handle Charles," Thomas explained. "The evidence is substantial, not just against you, Ethan, but apparently against other customers and businesses over the years. Once people heard we were investigating, more complaints emerged. And the dealership?" Samantha wondered. "The parent company will likely install new management," Michael surmised. "They won't want the negative publicity." Ethan had been silent, watching a rainbow form on the horizon beyond the city skyline. Finally, he spoke. "I'd still like to purchase those vehicles," he said quietly. Everyone turned to him in surprise. "Dad, after everything that happened," Amanda began. "This was never about revenge," Ethan explained. "It was about keeping my promise to the people who've stood by me. They deserve their rewards, regardless of Charles Denver." Thomas clapped him on the shoulder. "That's why you're respected, Ethan. Not for your money, but for your character." Later that evening, as sunset painted the McCoy cotton fields in gold and crimson, Ethan and Samantha walked between the rows. The earth smelled fresh after the rain, and a gentle breeze rustled the plants. "I've been thinking about your situation," Ethan said, after they had walked in comfortable silence for a while. "My situation. You mentioned needing to pay for business school, and I happen to need someone to help manage the farm's operations while Amanda focuses on her clinic." Samantha stopped walking. "Mr. McCoy, are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you an opportunity," he clarified. "To learn, to grow, to apply your education in real time. The position comes with a competitive salary and tuition assistance." "Why me? You barely know me." Ethan's weathered face creased into a smile. "I know enough. You stood up for what was right when it cost you something. That's rare these days." As they resumed walking, the setting sun stretched their shadows across the cotton field. The tall, weathered farmer and the young woman whose integrity had helped clear his name, different in many ways, yet connected by shared values stronger than any blood ties. "Thank you," Samantha said finally. "I won't disappoint you." "I know you won't," Ethan replied simply. In the distance, the farmhouse lights glowed welcoming against the darkening sky. Amanda stood on the porch, watching them return side by side, and felt something shift in the atmosphere, as if the universe were realigning after a storm, setting things right again. The Luxe Motors showroom hummed with subdued activity 1 week after Charles Denver's dramatic exit. Corporate representatives from the parent company occupied the management offices, reviewing files and interviewing staff. Rumors circulated about additional financial irregularities discovered in the dealership's records. When Ethan McCoy entered, followed by Michael Thompson and his legal team, conversations halted. Recognition dawned on the employees' faces. This was the farmer whose reputation Charles had tried to destroy, the customer whose business could have saved their sales quarter. A corporate representative approached, hand extended. "Mr. McCoy, I'm Jennifer Walters, Regional Director for Luxe Automotive Group. We've been expecting you." Ethan shook her hand firmly. "Ms. Walters, I understand you've been briefed on my purchase intentions." "Yes, and we're prepared to honor every aspect of the original agreement, with an additional corporate discount as a gesture of goodwill for the unfortunate situation with Mr. Denver." "That won't be necessary," Ethan replied. "A fair price is all I've ever wanted. That, and proper respect." Jennifer nodded, slightly taken aback by his refusal of free money, a concept foreign to the luxury car business. "Of course. And who will be handling your paperwork today? Is Samantha Rivera available? I'd like her to receive the commission." "Ms. Rivera resigned last week," Jennifer explained. "We tried to rehire her after learning the circumstances, but she declined." A small smile played at the corners of Ethan's mouth. "I imagine she did." The transaction proceeded smoothly. When it came time to make payment arrangements, Michael Thompson produced a certified bank check for the entire amount, just over $2 million. "We won't be financing," he explained to the wide-eyed finance manager who had replaced Victor Mendez as they completed the paperwork. Ethan noticed a familiar face watching from the service department doorway. Victor, now dressed in a simpler shirt without a tie. Their eyes met, and Victor nodded slightly in acknowledgement before disappearing back into the service area. "Victor Mendez is still employed here," Ethan asked Jennifer. "In a reduced capacity," she explained quietly. "He's cooperating fully with our internal investigation and the authorities. Given his family situation and his eventual cooperation, we felt it appropriate to keep him on in the service department rather than sales." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "Good. Everyone deserves a second chance if they're willing to make amends." The dealership arranged for all 10 vehicles to be delivered to the McCoy farm the following day, as Ethan's group prepared to leave. Several employees approached him awkwardly. "Mr. McCoy," one senior salesman said, "we wanted to apologize for how you were treated before. Not all of us agreed with Charles's methods, but none of you spoke up," Ethan noted without rancor. The man looked down. "No, sir, we didn't." "Fear's a powerful thing," Ethan acknowledged. "Just remember, every time you stay silent in the face of wrong, it gets easier to do it again." Back at the McCoy farm, preparations for the next day's celebration were underway. Tables and chairs dotted the expansive front lawn. Rosa supervised a team setting up catering stations, while Amanda and Samantha hung lights in the trees. "Are you nervous about starting your new job?" Amanda asked as they worked. Samantha smiled. "Terrified. I know retail, not agriculture. Dad doesn't expect you to know farming. He has Joaquin for that. He wants your business perspective, your fresh eyes. Still, I have so much to learn. That's why he hired you. Because you know what you don't know, and you're willing to learn. That's rare." As evening approached, Ethan sat on the porch with Thomas Jenkins, watching the sunset paint the cotton fields gold. Max, the aging border collie, dozed at their feet. "You know," Thomas mused, "half the county's talking about tomorrow's celebration." "Let them talk," Ethan replied. "After all the gossip about my financial troubles, they deserve something new to chew on. Charles Denver's hearing is next week. The evidence against him is substantial." Ethan nodded but said nothing. "You don't seem particularly vindictive for a man who was falsely accused," Thomas observed. "Vengeance is a luxury I can't afford," Ethan replied. "Uses up energy better spent elsewhere. Still, you must feel some satisfaction seeing justice served." Ethan watched as Samantha laughed at something Amanda said. The two young women working together as if they'd known each other for years. "The best revenge is living well," he said finally. "My daddy taught me that. Denver's punishment is having to live with himself. Knowing what he is, I don't envy him that burden." The following morning dawned clear and bright. By 10 o'clock, 10 gleaming vehicles were lined up on the McCoy farm's circular driveway. A Porsche 911, a Range Rover, and 8 other luxury models in various colors. Farm employees and their families gathered, along with friends and neighbors. Even those who had whispered behind Ethan's back during his troubles now smiled and offered congratulations. Drawn by curiosity and the promise of celebration, Ethan stood on the porch steps, surveying the crowd. He wore his usual attire, jeans, boots, and a clean work shirt, rather than anything fancy. Amanda stood beside him, with Samantha and Michael nearby. "Attention, everyone," Ethan called, his voice carrying across the yard. The crowd quieted expectantly. "First, I want to thank you all for coming. Many of you have stood by my family through good times and bad. And I'm grateful." He paused, his eyes finding those who had doubted him during the recent troubles. Some had the grace to look away. "As most of you know, I recently signed a significant export contract that will benefit this farm for years to come. While I appreciate the congratulations, that success wasn't mine alone. It belongs to everyone who's worked this land alongside me." He gestured to the vehicles. "These aren't status symbols. They're tokens of appreciation for the people whose loyalty and hard work made our success possible." One by one, he called forward 8 employees, men and women who had worked for the McCoy farm for over 15 years. Each received keys to one of the vehicles, along with legal ownership papers. Tears flowed freely as rough hands, calloused from years of farm work, accepted these unexpected rewards. Joaquin Martinez, the foreman who had worked for the McCoys since he was 18, stood speechless beside a new Ford F-150 Platinum, the most practical of the luxury vehicles, selected specifically for his needs. "I can't accept this, Don Ethan," he protested in a choked voice. "You've earned it, Joaquin. 27 years of dawn-to-dusk dedication, take it with my gratitude." Last came Amanda's Porsche and Ethan's Range Rover. As the crowd applauded, Ethan raised his hands for silence once more. "There's one more announcement," he said. "My daughter, Dr. Amanda McCoy, will be opening a rural health clinic in Millfield next month, providing affordable care to our community. I hope you'll support her as you've supported me." More applause followed, as the formal presentation concluded and guests dispersed to enjoy the catered barbecue. Ethan noticed a familiar car pulling up, a modest sedan that belonged to Victor Mendez. The former finance manager stepped out hesitantly, clearly unsure of his welcome. Ethan walked over to meet him. "Mr. Mendez, I'm surprised to see you here." "I almost didn't come," Victor admitted, "but my daughter insisted. She said running away from my mistakes wouldn't help me learn from them." "Smart girl." "She is," Victor agreed proudly. "Mr. McCoy, I wanted to thank you for not pressing additional charges against me, and to apologize again, face to face." Ethan studied the man thoughtfully. "You made a bad choice, then a good one. That's the story of most lives, including mine." They shook hands, a simple gesture that nonetheless represented something profound. the acknowledgement that redemption was possible, that one's worst moment need not define one's entire life. As Victor joined the gathering, accepted tentatively by others who recognized his role in exposing Charles's schemes, Ethan returned to the porch. From this vantage point, he could see his entire world, the land, the people, the legacy his father and grandfather had entrusted to him. Samantha approached, offering him a glass of lemonade. "Quite a day, Mr. McCoy." "Indeed it is, Miss Rivera," he agreed. "The first of many, I hope." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the celebration unfold, a community healing, moving forward, stronger for having weathered the storm together. 1 year later, the McCoy farm bloomed under the warm Texas spring. Cotton plants grew in neat rows stretching toward the horizon, their tender green promising another bountiful harvest. The farmhouse had received subtle upgrades: a new roof, repaired porch steps, fresh paint, while maintaining its traditional character. In what had once been an unused storage room, Samantha now occupied a small but efficient office. Computer screens displayed commodity prices and weather forecasts. Charts tracked production improvements since she had introduced new inventory systems and marketing strategies. Ethan knocked on the open door. "Got a minute?" Samantha looked up with a smile. "Always for the boss." "Export numbers came in," he said, placing a folder on her desk. "Up 17% from last quarter. The direct-to-manufacturer contracts are paying off," she observed, reviewing the figures. Cutting out middlemen was the right call. In the months since joining McCoy Agricultural Enterprises, Samantha had transformed from car salesperson to savvy agribusiness manager, taking night classes in agricultural business while working full-time. She brought fresh perspectives that complemented Ethan's traditional farming knowledge. "How's business school going?" Ethan asked. "Final exams next week?" Samantha replied. "Then just 1 more semester until graduation." "You'll ace them," Ethan said confidently. "You always do." Their professional relationship had evolved into mutual respect and something like friendship. Ethan valued her innovative ideas. Samantha appreciated his patience in teaching her the farming business from the ground up. "The clinic opening is tomorrow," Ethan reminded her. "Amanda's nervous, though she won't admit it." "I'll be there," Samantha promised. Elena's excited about the volunteer program. Samantha's younger sister had been accepted to pre-med programs at 3 universities. Aided by recommendations from Amanda and experience gained volunteering at the new rural health clinic, across town, in what had once been an abandoned feed store, Amanda supervised final preparations for the McCoy Community Health Clinic. Medical equipment gleamed in freshly painted examination rooms. The waiting area featured comfortable chairs and children's books, rather than the sterile environment typical of medical facilities. "Dr. Rodriguez, what do you think?" Amanda asked her mentor, who had agreed to consult part-time at the clinic while maintaining his hospital position. "Better than I imagined," he admitted. Inspecting a state-of-the-art ultrasound machine, most rural clinics make do with outdated equipment. This is hospital quality. Every patient deserves the best care, regardless of where they live or what they can pay, Amanda insisted. The clinic would operate on a sliding-scale payment system, with services free to those who couldn't afford them. Initial funding came from the McCoy family, with grants and donations sustaining operations long-term. Dr. Rodriguez smiled at his former student. "Your father must be very proud." "He is," Amanda acknowledged, though he's still uncomfortable with the sign. Outside, above the entrance, a simple sign read, McCoy Community Health Clinic, named not for Amanda, but for her mother, Sarah McCoy, who had dreamed of bringing better health care to rural Texas before cancer took her life. In downtown Millfield, Rosa's Cafe bustled with lunchtime customers at a corner table. Thomas Jenkins ate with Victor Mendez, now employed as a financial analyst at Regional Bank of Texas. "The audit committee was impressed with your report," Thomas told him. "You have a good eye for regulatory compliance issues." Victor nodded gratefully. "After what happened at Luxe Motors, I'm determined to prevent similar situations." "How's your daughter doing at UT Austin?" "Thriving," Victor replied, his face lighting up. "Pre-law. She wants to specialize in financial ethics." "Like father." "Like daughter," Thomas observed. Victor's expression turned reflective. "She's becoming who she was meant to be. I'm just trying to become the father she deserves." The conversation paused as Rosa herself approached their table, coffee pot in hand. "Refills, gentlemen. And have you heard the news about Charles Denver?" Both men shook their heads. "Sentenced yesterday," Rosa reported, filling their cups. 5 years for fraud, with additional penalties for financial crimes. The judge was not impressed by his affluenza defense. After Rosa moved on, Victor stared into his coffee. 5 years doesn't seem enough for the damage he caused. Perhaps not, Thomas agreed. But there's a certain poetry in it. The man who valued money and status above all else, now left with neither. The following day, the entire community gathered for the clinic's grand opening. Ethan, dressed in his best shirt, but still wearing his worn cowboy hat, stood proudly as Amanda cut the ribbon. Applause rippled through the crowd. Joaquin Martinez and other farm employees arrived in their luxury vehicles. Still pristine after a year of careful use, they had become known locally as McCoy's millionaires, though none of them had changed their humble working lifestyles. Speech, someone called, as the ribbon fluttered to the ground. Amanda looked to her father, who nodded encouragingly. "This clinic fulfills my mother's dream," she began, her voice strong despite the emotion evident in her eyes. She believed healthcare was a right, not a privilege today. "We honor her memory by opening these doors to everyone in our community, regardless of their ability to pay." More applause followed, as guests toured the facility. Samantha found Ethan standing slightly apart from the crowd, observing the scene with quiet satisfaction. "Penny for your thoughts, Mr. McCoy. Just thinking about how things turn out," he replied. "A year ago, Charles Denver tried to destroy us because I didn't fit his image of success. Now look where we are. And look where he is," Samantha added. Ethan shook his head. "That's not what matters. What matters is this." He gestured to the clinic, to Amanda showing children the friendly examination rooms designed to ease their fears, to community members of all backgrounds gathered in support. "This is success, not cars or money or status." As the celebration continued, Ethan slipped away to visit Sarah's grave in the small cemetery behind the Methodist church. The headstone was simple but elegant, always adorned with fresh flowers. "You'd be proud of her, Sarah," he said quietly. "She has your heart, your compassion. The clinic is everything you dreamed it would be." A gentle breeze rustled the oak tree shading the cemetery, almost like a response. That evening, the McCoy farmhouse hosted a small dinner for those closest to the family. Amanda and Dr. Rodriguez, Samantha and Elena, Thomas Jenkins, and Joaquin Martinez with his wife. As they enjoyed Rose's catered meal at the expanded dining table, conversation flowed easily. Thomas shared news about a young farmer he'd helped secure financing for. Dr. Rodriguez discussed plans for the clinic's outreach programs. Joaquin reported on the promising condition of this year's crops. When dessert was served, Ethan raised his glass of sweet tea. To new beginnings, and to the values that never change: hard work, honesty, and treating others with dignity. And to seeing people for who they truly are, not what they appear to be, Samantha added, meeting Ethan's eyes with a warmth that suggested their relationship might be evolving beyond professional respect. Later, after guests had departed, Ethan and Samantha stood on the porch, watching fireflies dot the darkness beyond the cotton fields. His weathered hand found hers, a simple gesture that felt both new and entirely natural. "You know," Ethan said thoughtfully, "my daddy used to say the true measure of wealth isn't what you have, but who you are and who you have beside you." "Your father sounds like a wise man," Samantha replied softly. "He was. I think he would have liked you. Your determination, your integrity. I wish I could have met him and Sarah." Ethan squeezed her hand gently. "In some ways you already have. They're in everything we do here, every decision, every principle we stand by." From inside the farmhouse, Amanda watched them through the window, smiling to herself. After losing her mother, she'd worried her father would always be alone. Now, seeing him with Samantha, she felt a circle completing, not replacing what was lost, but building something new from a foundation of shared values under the vast Texas sky, dotted with countless stars. The McCoy farm stood as it had for generations, a place where true value was measured not in dollars, but in character, where appearances meant less than actions, and where treating others with dignity always yielded the greatest rewards. The luxury cars parked beside old farm trucks served as daily reminders that worth came from within, a lesson Charles Denver never understood, but one that Ethan McCoy had lived his entire life. What would you do if someone judged you by your appearance? Would you have the patience and dignity that Ethan showed? Sometimes the richest people are the ones who don't need to show their wealth. True or false, the greatest wealth is measured not in dollars, but in character,